You guys like the sweet new background? That's from our boy Matty G, who's going to have content here on the Old Man Squad TV network. I don't know, YouTube channel, whatever you want to call it. Possibly as soon as later today. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball flagship show here on the network. I'm Dan Vespris, and we'll get into a little bit more on what's going on with the network here in a moment. First, wanted to let you guys know this is finally we're going to get through the end of the top 100 on the Yahoo rank board today. It's the final 10 names before we start to kind of break out. We'll do some breakout shows, not breakout players necessarily, although that'll probably be in there. We'll have sleepers. We'll have sort of steals and busts of each round. We've got a laundry list. I wrote down last offseason because I knew I wasn't going to remember. I wrote down last offseason all the draft window shows that I did that I liked, and I wrote down ideas for new ones that I didn't like. And I didn't count this before coming on air. This is bad podcasting, but it's something like 10, 15. It's like 25 different types of shows that we can pretty much do on every Yahoo rank board. And this is version 1 right now, so we get to do it a few times. Let's dive straight into the players on the board. I'll give you the list of the 10 names we're going to talk about on today's program, and then we'll start discussing them. This show, of course, is brought to you by FanDuel. They are our presenting sponsor here on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball and the Believe network of shows. Thank you, as always, to our friends at FanDuel Sports and the FanDuel Sports Book for bringing us a little legitimacy here with some stateside sports book action. Jakob Poeltl is number 91. Then Jalen Suggs at 92. Bradley Beal, 93. Peyton Pritchard, old PP at 94. My kids would have liked that joke. Shaden Sharp at 95. Onyeka Okongwu at 96. CJ McCollum at number 97. Keontae George, 98. Mikal Bridges, 99. And Donovan Clingan is number 100. Let's begin with Jakob. Oh, shiny Jakob. Why is he shiny? Because he had a great season last year when they let him play. Toronto, and it was actually Poeltl himself who came out before the season, was like, look, we're not trying to win every game this year. Oh, you don't say. It's fairly obvious with a lot of teams, but you don't generally hear the quiet part out loud. A byproduct of a new era of life where everyone feels comfortable just saying the quiet part now. But Jakob did let us know, hey, if you're going to draft Raptors last year, you better be ready for a bunch of rest. And Jakob got plenty of rest. He missed 25 games in the midst of a fantastic fantasy season. He was number 43 in 9-cat, 14.5 points, 9.6 rebounds, 2.8 assists. Always a good number there for Jakob out of the center spot. 1.2 steals, 1.2 blocks. 62.7% from the field, 67.4% at the free throw line. That's usually the spot that holds him back a little bit, but 67 and change last year was far and away the best of his career. Can we expect something similar going forward? I would think so. The Raptors brought in Brandon Ingram, didn't bother to play their new toy last year, but now with presumably an offseason to get everybody healthy, you come into the year with a pretty formidable starting five, if perhaps a lack of fit and a lack of depth, maybe. You know, pieces having to wedge themselves together is an impediment if you're trying to go for a crap ton of wins, but it sure feels like the Raptors are going to be attempting to win ball games this coming year because you got a starting lineup of Poeltl, Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram we just talked about, Emmanuel Quickley, and RJ Barrett. That's a pretty respectable five, even if you maybe don't trust the rest of the guys on the team or even those guys to really gel properly. It's still five solid NBA players that you're putting together, and a lot of the Eastern Conference cannot claim that. So I would expect Jakob to play, which eliminates in my mind at least some of the games played fear, which has been an issue for him in seasons when his team isn't trying. When he's on teams that are trying, he's generally been pretty good in that respect. You're hoping the last couple of seasons are not the start of a trend, but if you go back, and Poeltl's been in the NBA almost a decade at this point, once he started playing, remember he started in Toronto, went to San Antonio, and came back, he's been extremely reliable. So I'm not hyper worried about the games played thing on Pirtle. I think this is, for that reason, intensely late to be able to get him. In the 90s, a guy that has top 50 per game potential and maybe not as much injury risk. So I love Jakob Pirtle at 91. That's the final. I'm trying to do a better job here of not giving you my opinion on the guy right at the beginning of the assessment. But obviously, if you're actually listening to the words that I'm saying, you're going to figure it out pretty quick. So Jakob, thumbs up. I went right out of the camera. Thumbs up there. We'll keep it in the camera view for this one. Next name on the list today is Jalen Suggs, who got off to a terrific start last year and then got hurt, cooled off, got more hurt, didn't play anymore, ended up at 35 games out of course, a possible 82. That's rough. Last year, he actually made it through the season healthy, but he's now 1 out of 4 in season health. First year in the NBA, he missed 34 games. Second year, he missed 29. Third year, he missed 7. This past year, 47. So that's been problematic for Suggs. And you can't really say that it's tied to a minutes thing because he really hasn't played a truckload of minutes in any of his seasons so far. So what do you attribute it to? Probably a style of play. He is a sort of a semi-high fly act. He's extremely athletic. And he plays so hard. These guys that play that hard on defense, guards that bang into big dudes and just don't mind, they tend to miss games. It reminds me a little bit of kind of the Patrick Beverley style of play without the rebounding. Suggs is going to be an elite steals guy. If he plays 27, 28 minutes a game, he's going to be up around 1.5 steals, most likely. He has excellent blocks for a guard. That's what you're drafting here in the 90s if you want to take him at this juncture. And I don't have a big-time problem with it. He doesn't need a ton of usage to get to this marker, but he's not a good field goal percent guy. But for last year, he shot 47%. Other 3 seasons, 36, 42, and 41. So it kind of feels like last year was a bit of a one-off. He's not a terrific three-point shooter. His free throw number spiked last year, but it's hard to know if that's real. So not my favorite play in this range, Jalen Suggs. You guys know I love getting steals late, and I know that it's weird to say I'd rather go later, but I would rather go later. I'm going to spam text message that made me nervous for a moment. Hi, everything okay? Yeah, man, everything's fine, whoever the hell you are. It's these things that distract you because you're worried that it's like something related to your kid. That's not nice. I'm on a podcast and I'm not editing it out. So Jalen Suggs, not my favorite play at 92, especially now with Desmond Bane in town. I think the Magic are going to be good, which is great, but I don't think that they were trying to rest guys anyway. So I'm afraid of his health. I think that his usage takes a small step back, and it's hard for me to know that some of the stuff we saw last year was actually real or if that could potentially slip a little bit also. So, nay, I say to Jalen, to Jay. Had a rhyme right at my fingertips, and I biffed it. Bradley Beal, number 93. This one, I mean, you got to have some big fat stones to go down this path. Beal last year was number 87 in 9-cat. He is efficient, so we can give him that. And he's got a little bit of that Zach LaVine fantasy mold to him, where it's, points on good percentages. But at the same time, Bradley Beal is a jalopy. He is a broken down old car at this point of his career, which is crazy because he's not ancient yet. He just turned 32 like a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. I got a decade on this dude, and I'm a bit rickety, but come on now. Beal has not made it through a season intact since 2018. The second year of the COVID-shortened stretch, he only missed 12 games, and for that to be the best number in the last 7 seasons is rough. He is still a third fiddle instead of behind Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. Now he's behind Kawhi Leonard and James Harden, although we'll see what goes on with the Clippers and all this Kawhi you know, aspiration landscaping stuff. I really don't know. I continue to wonder what the hell it all means. Like, we get it. They were circumventing the salary cap. What I don't understand, and maybe I'm misinterpreting what people are upset about. Are they upset because he got a sponsorship deal from a company that was basically bankrolled by the owner of his basketball team? Or are people upset that he didn't do anything to get the sponsorship money? Because if it's the do anything part, like, go ahead, Kawhi, just like put out a tweet. Doesn't take much. One tweet, here's $28 million or whatever's going on. If it's the fact that an owner bankrolling a company that then sponsors a player on a different team, that I think is the screwier part. And I don't know how much of this is going on in the NBA. I'm guessing more than just this one, but that is tricky. And it sort of makes you think that salary caps are stupid. Just throwing it out there. It's a little dumb. The owners that don't have the same resources as a Steve Ballmer are like, yeah, that's why we have a salary cap. But then Ballmer and the other actually wealthy owners are like, this is idiotic. We have money. We want to throw at this organization. We should be allowed to do it. And the players are like, yes, you should be allowed to do it. So, competitive balance. What? I don't want anything to do with Bradley Beal this year. I know that there's a chance that he could be a roto value at this spot because of the nice percentages. What if? Play a game of what ifs. What if he gets to take 14 and a half shots a game instead of 13? Like, there are a lot of ways that Beal can get inside the top 70 this year, but that rickety old body, I can't get on board. Head to head, there's absolutely no chance that I'm drafting Bradley Beal this year unless he falls like another 20 slots. And if you can get him well outside the top 100, then you almost have no choice because you could cast him into the ocean and your team would be fine. Roto, you could make like a 20% value argument on Beal here and say, I pick my words more carefully. Not that he's going to have a 20% like gain over his draft slot. Just like there's a 20% chance that this could work. Where if you draft him at 90 something and he's like number 75 and he only misses 17 games or something like that, then you're like, yeah, that was fine for me. But can't we do better? I think we can do better. I don't know. It's a gross path. Someone's going to walk it. I would rather have this dude, Peyton Pritchard, who burst onto the scene last year with the Celtics as the sort of maybe sixth man is probably the fair way to say it. He played 28 and a half minutes a game. He played 80 out of 82 ball games. He averaged 14 points, 4 boards, 3.5 assists, a steal, 3 threes on 47-85 splits. He didn't take many free throws, so unfortunately that didn't help him all that much. But this is a guy that figures to step into a significantly larger role with no Tatum and no Porzingis, and I don't care that Anthony Simons is in town. There's almost no amount of basketballing that Simons can do that's going to cover the loss of Tatum and Porzingis. I don't care how much usage you heap onto that guy. Tatum and Porzingis were responsible for like a half of what the Celtics did during a game last year. And that's just back into the bucket. It's not inaccurate. I exaggerated a fair amount, but that's a ton. Between injury and trades, and remember, Drew Holiday's gone too, if you want to throw his 9 shots into the vacated bucket as well. The Celtics sent out the 9 shots of Holiday, the 14 shots of Porzingis, and Tatum's 20 are gone as well. And I know this is fuzzy mathing it, but my job here on Old Man Squad is to make fantasy basketball as simple as possible for all of you guys, especially if you're playing 9-cat, which is what we focus on. You give Anthony Simons 30 shots, and you're still going to get more for Peyton Pritchard than what he had last year, which put him at number 79. The fear, if you have any, is that the field goal percent jump maybe doesn't stick when he's more a focal point and less a guy that's going to be open as hell around Tatum and Brown and Porzingis and Derek White, et cetera, et cetera. But to me, that feels a little bit overblown. Maybe you see a 2% field goal percent dip. You're going to see more free throws, more scoring, more threes, more assists, more probably steals and rebounds if he's just on the court an extra couple of minutes. Does he start? I don't know. And I frankly don't care because he's going to have a lot to do. I love Peyton Pritchard in the 90s. I think he probably ends up going earlier in future draft board iterations because I other than possible rest stuff, I almost don't see a way that he doesn't get back to near where he was last season. So this is one of the ones where you're kind of taking a guy, it feels like, more near a floor, and that's magical. Like to me, he if we did a breakout show, he'd be on it. And it's pretty awesome that you might be able to get a breakout guy in the 8th round, at least right now. And I continue to point back, and we're going to bring FanDuel back into the mix here for a minute. Our friends over at FanDuel Sports, official partner of us here at Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball and the Believe Network, have the Celtics regular season win total at 42.5, and the public is dying to bet the under because they traded away Porzingis and Drew Holiday and Tatum, most importantly, because Tatum is out for the entire year. But that Eastern Conference is crap. That is a turd fest, especially if Giannis gets moved at some point or shut down, because Indy's not going to be nearly as good this year, and Boston themselves not going to be as good this year, and I'm betting Cleveland's not going to be as good this year. And I mean, who are the teams that you point at and you're like, they got better? Toronto, if only because they're going to play some dudes. East is weak. Celtics are, just with the guys they have, are going to accidentally win 40 ball games. So I actually like the over on that one. I think the public is overrepresenting how bad they will be. And even if they try to lose games, they're still going to end up in a play-in spot. So I actually think the Celtics go over. It's weird to have Celtics not be a team you have to overpay to get on the over, but that's how it is right now. Shaedon Sharpe gets us to the halfway point on today's show, and he is a complicated one because he's a team build kind of player. And these guys are always tough to break down because Sharpe last year played 31 minutes a game. He got 15 shots a night, and he was ranked outside the top 160 in 9 category leagues. That's not good. Down the stretch, if you're thinking, did his role grow as guys got shut down? The answer is yes. He was taking 17 shots a night over the season's final 25 games, bumped him up to number 126 in 9-cat. Over the season's final month, he was taking 19 shots a game. Yeah, I know. Although Simons was also mostly shut down by that point, so no Simons and no Jeremy Grant and no DeAndre Ayton. And Sharpe was number 88 during that span of time. And so, again, the closer you got to the end of the season, the more you got out of Shaedon Sharpe. To me, he profiles as, I refer to him as complicated, but I feel like it's simple in its complexity in that you're getting a guy who's going to blow up your percentages. Just assume it. He's not going to fix those overnight. He was actually okay at free throw percent, not this season, but the prior one. So there's a chance that he could get pretty close to neutral in free throw. He wasn't very good at it down the stretch last year. If you're thinking, hey, is this something that's been trending up? The answer is no. Field goal percent, especially if the volume increases, is probably going to be weak. But the upshot with Sharpe is that he's going to get a lot of usage this year because bringing in Drew Holiday to replace Anthony Simons, that's not a one-to-one usage swap. Simons was a guy that was out there chucking, and Holiday is going to be a guy who's out there orchestrating, helping, trying to grow the young guys. Avdia and Sharpe are the guys that are going to be stepping into the really big doing stuff role. And while, admittedly, Avdia's fantasy game translates a whole hell of a lot better than Sharpe's does, Shaedon, down the stretch last year, again, 20 shots a game. He was averaging 26 points, 7 boards, 3.5 assists, 1.5 steals, and 2.5 3-pointers. The problem was that he was basically a points league superstar in that spot. 45 and change from the field, 73 and change at the free throw line, almost 3 turnovers a game. If you punt any one of those 3 things, and I would suggest field goal because that's probably the most reliably season over season bad number for Sharpe, He jumped inside the 5th round down the stretch. And that's how I think you should probably treat him this coming season. If you draft him in the 90s, which is where he's pre-ranked, you best be on your way to a punt. And I would strongly suggest field goal because there's a chance his free throw number might not be that bad. So yeah, he could actually get to around the 90th rank in 9-cat. Like, I don't think this is a terrible pick in straight 9-cat, but to me, the upshot with Sharp is a punt, is a team build thing. The downside is, what if he doesn't continue taking 18, 19 shots a game? What if the Blazers distribute their usage in some other way that's not super obvious to us staring at them, squinting at the roster right now? Because Scoot is kind of the only other guy where you're like, yeah, I guess he could do more. Like, is Scoot the guy who takes from Sharp? I don't think so. And Jeremy Grant, unfortunately, is still there to start the year. So that's the other little hiccup. Incredibly difficult contract to move. How long does Jeremy Grant even get to play? So my style of fantasy basketball, we generally pass up on guys like Shaedon Sharp. And I get it. You want the guy who's going to go put up a bunch of points. That's fun. But my definition of fun is winning. That's not to say that you can't win with Shaedon Sharp. I just think it's a harder way to win. It's a harder way to build a team when you draft a guy at 95 who you think in 9-cat probably maxes out around number 90. And that's only after guys start getting shut down a little bit. So Sharp probably starts the year outside the top 100 in straight 9-cat. In punt field goal, he probably does get to this spot pretty easily most of the year. And if that isn't a relatively clear assessment of what's going on, too damn bad, we got to get to the next guy on the board, and that is Onyeka Okongwu, who looked like he was ready for a truly colossal season. And then the Hawks brought in Kristaps Porzingis. So the season is not going to be as colossal as we hoped. Last year, after Clint Capella got shut down, Okongwu was a 2nd rounder. I know that's freaking crazy, and that's not something that's going to carry over, but that's what he's able to do in full 30-plus minutes per game. In 31 minutes per game, he was a 3rd rounder. That was over the second half of last year, where Capella was still around for part of it, but not all that much. My hope, and maybe this is sort of the pie in the sky thing, my hope is that Okongwu and Porzingis share the floor for some stretch of time. Capella and Okongwu shared the floor very briefly, but it's an easier sell job with Okongwu and Porzingis because both of those guys can chase to the perimeter a little bit, and both of those guys on offense can space the floor a little bit. Remember, Okongwu, and it's not something that he's super consistent with, attempted 2 3-pointers a game last year and hit 32% of them. That's not bad for a center. Down the stretch, he made a 3-pointer a game. Now, Porzingis is going to be the guy who's more comfortable out there. Second half of last year, basically when Porzingis was back to full strength, he was hitting almost 3 threes a game. But you could play Kristaps at the power forward on offense and center on defense. That's workable. It's not, I don't want to say it's not advisable necessarily. I don't think that's going to be your starting 5. Jalen Johnson has to be your power forward in the starting 5, doesn't he? DeAndre Hunter probably. Oh, I'm sorry. DeAndre Hunter got traded. Getting my names mishmashed here. The Rook. Risa Shea. Zachary Risa Shea, probably the small forward. Not a rookie anymore. He was a rookie. Bear with me, friends. It's been a long few days recovering from a stomach bug. Trae Young and Dyson Daniels in the backcourt, of course. That, to me, is probably your starting 5. Risa Shea in with the other 4. Porzingis or Okongwu, one of those 2 guys coming off the bench. I don't know which one. But as you get guys into a rotation, you'll see stretches where it's Porzingis and Okongwu in the front court when Jalen Johnson is off the floor for his 16 minutes of rest per ball game or whatever. I mean, Jalen Johnson played 36 minutes a game last year. That's not going to last for him for health. But say he plays 33, 34. So there's 14 power forward minutes on the table. Okongwu, Porzingis could take a good chunk of those. So I do think that Okongwu gets up into the high 20s this year. Again, he was at 28 minutes a game for the season last year, and that got him to top 60. I think that's actually still attainable for him, especially when you consider the fact that Porzingis is not a spring chicken. That dude misses a lot of basketball. So I like Okongwu in the 90s. I'm not in love with Okongwu in the 90s the way I would have been before Porzingis showed up. But if you still need a center here and you don't want to wait for the next wave, which, by the way, there's still, in my opinion, 2 or 3 centers still on the board that maybe are a little bit safer, but not by much. Point is, I am medium positive on Okongwu. I still like him here. He's not a prime target, but I still like him. Let's go to an old man next. CJ McCollum's stuck in purgatory. He's out in Washington right now. And I'll be honest with you guys, I have no idea how much basketball CJ McCollum is going to play this year. It doesn't seem like it should be all that much, which is a shame he's getting on in his years. He's 2 weeks away from 34. We're into the twilight now, and he's stuck on a team where there's no point in playing him very much. I do think that he's probably going to get to do a lot at the beginning of the season. They're going to try to rehab his value. I'm sure they're going to attempt to try to trade him. Is this expiring, or is there 1 year after this one? Nope. Expiring deal. So movable for CJ. So the job for the Wizards is to say, look, here's a guy. He's healthy enough. And then trade him. And somewhere he's going to go is going to play him enough, but it's not going to be great. And so I say to you, make an argument to me on why I should take CJ McCollum in the 90s. What's the argument? That you might get like max CJ for a couple of months? Okay, well, you kind of had max CJ for a couple of months his entire career. And unfortunately, because his free throw stroke vanished sometime around COVID and never came back, he's just not that valuable in fantasy anymore. I know he's scoring 21 points, 4 boards, 4 assists. 21, 4, and 4 is a good starting point. But the defensive stats they were never great for him, but they've eroded pretty hard lately. The free throw percent has become extremely problematic. The field goal percent gets seemingly more problematic these days because either you can call it shot selection, number of 3-pointers per attempt has generally gone up for him since around the COVID times. Just like getting older also. And so for that reason, he ended up outside the top 100 in 9-cat last year. Yes, punts could bring him back inside. If you punted free throws, he was number 93 last year. If you punted field goal, he was number 91. Like, this is 90s. Put that in your brain. Say, okay, well, with a punt, we got him to basically what his pre-rank is on Yahoo right now. On a team that for most of last year was trying to compete. Now you put him on a team that's not. Wizards are deep in the tank still. Deep in the tank. He is on the trade block. He's going to be rested frequently. I want nothing to do with CJ McCollum this year. And to me, it's a pretty easy decision. Kente George, what is this, 98? I've lost track of where we're at now. Kente George at number 98. I frickin' hate the Utah Jazz. I hate them. Their half measures in tanking last year was a wonderful example of how to screw up everybody's fantasy game. Kente George somehow also got screwed with a little bit. He only played 67 out of 82 games, rested a little bit down the stretch. Not as much as most of his teammates, but not zero. And showed us once again that his fantasy game has jumbo size holes in it. He finished last year at number 208 in 9-cat. And if you're thinking, well, like, how did he do once everybody else got shut down? The answer is no better. He got pushed to the bench in favor of Isaiah Collier for a number of games, still played his 31 minutes, but was no longer really like the starting point guard. He was more of a bench gunner type. And over that stretch, roughly the season's final 25 games, he averaged 17-5 with no defensive stats, brutal field goal percent, among the worst in the entire NBA by volume, an okay free throw number, and generally high turnovers. Keontae George is one of those guys that building your team around his fantasy game is a harder way to win at fantasy basketball. Very much not impossible. If you punted field goal, he goes flying up the board like almost nobody else in the league goes flying up the board. 80, 90 slots of value jumped because of that god-awful free throw number. And he's likely to do more this coming season. Yes, the Jazz got Ace Bailey, so they got the Rook to mess with, and maybe we see a little bit more of Lauri Markkanen, but Colin Sexton is gone. Jordan Clarkson is gone. They've opened up the backcourt for, I hope, a little more Keontae George, but is it going to be Collier again? I'm not willing to take this risk. If you're punting field goal, it's less of a risk by a lot, but it's still some. Like, we get caught up in the fact that there's one really, really, really bad category, but he was not particularly good in almost anything last year, even scoring. There wasn't any one category you could point at and go, yeah, he's helping me a lot in that one. Assists, he was fine. Threes, he was fine. And then he was terrible in steals for a guard, 0.7. Terrible. Never blocks a shot. Probably blocked it with his face, the like 10 he had during the season. And the free throw number at 82 is fine, but honestly, we needed to get back to that 85 he had his rookie year if we want that to actually be useful. I don't want to go down this path. I think it's a harder way to try to win. Even though you might think, oh, breakout's coming. It's also possible it's not. He needs a ton of usage to get there, even if you're punting field goal. Now, obviously, that's a faster way to get him to value, but if you're not punting field goal, you shouldn't have anything to do with Keontae George. If you are punting field goal on your team, take a shot on him, but this, to me, is too early for it. Not when there are guys still on the board where you don't need to pray. Number 99 is Mikal Bridges. This is a perfectly fair place for Mikal Bridges. He is no longer a fantasy beast the way he was during his Phoenix tenure. His time in New York was almost exactly what you'd want out of him, which is all 82 games. He was in the mid-80s in 9 category rank. He shot 50% from the field, 81% at the free throw line. He got you 2 threes. He got you 1.5 defensive stats. Turnovers were low. Nothing was great. Nothing was bad. He was just fine in almost everything across the board. Again, flexing that durability, the 10th category, whatever you want to call it. Hasn't missed a game in his career, I think. Is that possible? I think he might have played in every single game so far. There was even a season there he played in 83 basketball games. That was the Phoenix to Brooklyn trade year where one team had more games left than the other, and he played in all of them. That's useful in fantasy. The thing you point out with Bridges, and you're like, what the hell happened here, is defensive stats used to be a point of positive gain for him in fantasy, and they're just not anymore. He was at 1.4 each of the last 2 seasons. In Phoenix, those numbers were better. 2.1, 2, 2, 1.6. I mean, these are the numbers. 1.6 was, sorry, that was in Brooklyn. It was 2 in Phoenix before he got traded that year. He was good on the defensive side, and now he doesn't really do anything over there. That is, if you're like, well, could Bridges get a little bit better again? That would be the one way. If defensive stats creep back up in any small amount, 1.6, 1.7 instead of 1.4, that's how he pushes up another round and a half in rankings. But 99 is the perfect spot for him. He's 3 and not that much D. He's 3 in efficiency. These are useful categories no matter what league you're in. Guys that play every day, useful no matter what league you're in. Even if he finally misses a game this year, he's a guy you have a more confidence in actually playing through the season. And now he's going where he belongs. He's going to be a totals win. It's a little bit of an artificial totals win, but it's a totals win. He was 42 last year by totals because you play in all 82 games. In Roto, it doesn't mean all that much. Top 100 guy playing in every single ball game is sort of meh for a games cap format. Unlimited games format, totals are totals. Everything he does matters, counts. So I'm good with Bridges at 99. He's not a guy that I'm excited about, but if I have any risks on my team, he's a guy you can take that makes sense. If you feel like you just need to sort of kick the can again on any one particular category you're hunting, he's a guy you can take. I think, I'd rather have Jakob Poeltl or Peyton Pritchard of the guys we've talked about so far. But in that next group, in this 91 to 100 range, Bridges, Onyeka Okongwu, those guys probably fall in the next chunk for me. But let's talk about number 100 because he's actually a guy that I like a lot in this range as well, and that is Donovan Clingan, who we just got a chance to see enough of late last year to say, I am extremely excited about Clingan this coming season. The Blazers do not have other centers that they want to deal with. Don't talk to me about the Time Lord. That dude's body's not going to hang up. And frankly, I don't even know what his contract situation is. So we're going to just forget about him altogether. Clingan down the stretch last season played 27 minutes a game, final 15 games of the year, averaged 8.5 points, 10.5 rebounds, 2.4 combined defensive stats, 51% from the field, which for a guy who's 9.5 feet tall, you expect a little bit more. 55 at the free throw line, does not turn the ball over ever, as he shouldn't because he's a center. So what the hell are you doing turning it over? And the amazing part is some of that stuff could be better. Most notably, field goal percent. I got no idea what he's doing shooting in the low 50s when you're that big and your only job is to basically reach up and place the ball gently into the bucket. So that's a spot that I think could be better this coming year. You could see that back up 53, 54. Wouldn't be all that surprising. Assume the free throws stay bad. You deal with it. And assume that he's going to get 27 minutes. I think he's going to be the starting center. They're not going to overload him because, again, he's built like a woolly mammoth. And, if you give a guy like that too much, this dude is 7'2", 280. He's huge. So you worry about a body that big making it through an NBA season without any kind of lower body injuries. But, man, you get him taking 7-8 shots a ball game at a mid-50s clip. Over 10 rebounds feels like almost a guarantee, which feels nuts. But Denny Avdia was taking a lot of the rebounds down the stretch last year. He did hit a couple of three-pointers. I don't really care. I don't think I want that. But he's a center going in this range that has actual upside. The turnovers kind of inflated his rank a little bit. If you assume that he's more like 1 to 1.5 turnovers a game instead of 0.6, that probably puts him more in the 65 to 85 range as opposed to top 50 for the 0.6 turnovers. But that's still good. So I like Donovan Clingan quite a lot, actually. And you guys have heard me talk on this show a number of times. I like the Blazers a lot for a multitude of reasons because they're a team that isn't that great, but I don't think wants to tank. They moved Simons and Ayton, so that's clearing the decks a little bit for some of these other guys. And I've mentioned it on shows earlier on, and we haven't brought him up yet because his pre-rank is not inside the top 100. I really like Toumani Camara this coming year. I like Avdia. I like Camara. I like Clingan. I actually like Drew Holiday, who's also not inside the top 100. And obviously he's an old goat, but so you have some other stuff to think about. But I think there are a number of Blazers that could have really intriguing fantasy seasons. And Donovan Clingan is right there among them. So Clingan, put him on the list of guys that I like in this range with Jakob Poeltl, with Peyton Pritchard. Those are the three guys that I like the most. Mikal Bridges, Onyeka Okongwu is kind of in that next tier. And then you get into the more team build type guys. So Shaedon Sharpe would probably almost be alone in the next group. Jalen Suggs, Bradley Beal are guys that you're dealing with the injury stuff. Keontae George, CJ McCollum. I just don't. Well, McCollum, I'm not drafting almost anywhere. Keontae George, I just think it's too early to take that risk. And frankly, Bradley Beal, you could probably put him in with McCollum also. I just don't. At least Beal's on a team that's going to try to win. That's the one advantage he has there. So Beal, like, I'd look at him 20 slots later. McCollum, I don't want anything to do with him. Keontae George, I'd look at him like 30 slots later. That's why I just put those guys in the probably not going to end up on our team bucket. At least Shaden Sharp is someone you can strongly consider here for the right team build. But Klingon, Pritchard, Jakob Pertl, Group A, Okongwu, Bridges, kind of Group B. If you're going to pick half of the names out of this 10, those are the half that I'd be looking at. Thanks for watching, everybody. This show, once again, brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. This is Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I'm Dan Bespris. And again, I got to go pick up a kid first thing in the afternoon, so probably won't have time to do 2 shows today. But tomorrow, I have 1 extra hour, which should be exactly the amount of time I need to finally do a 2-show day. And tomorrow, we get to finally break into some of these little breakout type discussions, as we mentioned already. Also, we still have the entire Atlantic Division of team breakdowns we haven't done yet. Whoopsies. Dano needs more time. Not right now, though. Like, rate, subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you soon. I lied. I had one more thing I wanted to talk about for those that are actually with us. Wanted to give a big welcome, as I mentioned at the beginning, new background prepared by our friend Matty G. He will also be dropping shows here. And as far as the Old Man Squad YouTube page goes, you guys are already seeing content from the amazing Noah Rubin, the fantastic Adam King. Matty G is putting out stuff now as well. We will likely be getting content on this network from Eric Ong. Also, there's a possibility that Jacob Dunn will have some points league stuff, not immediately, but that would be down the line a little bit. And it's growing like a weed, man. And I have all of you guys to thank. I'm so glad that the concept that we came up with here at Old Man Squad has been so appealing to bring such incredible people together. By the way, Dan Palio, Thunder Dan, might also have some stuff. And I almost forgot, DFS content. Brenton Eckersley and Keith Cork stuff here. Did I just list like 9 names? Holy crap. I'm the producer on all this? What an idiot I am. Love you all. Love my analysts. Love my fans. Love everybody. Let's just have a good Thursday. I'll see you guys tomorrow. For real this time.